Hello, everybody. It is 7:05. It is 8:05 on the East Coast. It is 5:05 on the West Coast. I am here to teach people how to use CBD, and tonight we're going to be covering how much CBD should you be using. So let me introduce myself quickly. Here we go. Hi, everybody. This is me. I'm David Anthony Schrader. How is everybody doing tonight? I hope everybody's doing well. I just wanted to let you guys see who I am. The last webinar, I forgot to turn on the camera so that people could see who I am and see me. Anyway, so let's begin. Thank you, everybody, for coming and being on this webinar. I so appreciate you being here. Okay, so I'm going to hide myself for the moment and welcome. First, before we go any further, I want to give a disclaimer, and it's important. Number one, I am not here to diagnose any medical condition. I am not a doctor. I'm not working to be a doctor, but I am autodidactic out of my personal need. I've suffered with chronic pain most of my life, and I've had to take it on myself and figure out how to learn and use CBD myself. So I'm not a doctor, but I have experience using it personally. Third, I'm not going to give any medical advice. I can't tell you what to do for this, that, or the other. Like I said, I'm not a doctor. I'm here to share what I've learned about managing my pain and using CBD and using cannabinoids. And everybody's heard about CBD oil. They've heard of CBD. They hear all of the commercials on the radio and on TV and on the internet about how great CBD is. And yet in the news, they keep hearing about people buying bad quality CBD, or they're buying stuff that doesn't work, or they're being taken by snake oil salesmen. What I'm trying to do here is help you avoid that. So another caveat I need to give you. CBD takes control of your liver. So if you are on prescription medications, like for heart medications or other issues that you're struggling with, if a doctor has put you on a prescription medication, don't use CBD until you've had a chance to talk to him or her. They may tell you that CBD is okay if you're doing this, but if you're not, then they may say don't use it. So make sure you speak to a doctor if you're on prescribed medications before taking CBD, okay? That's important. Like I said, CBD takes control of the liver. It's like a boss. And then once it takes control, it doesn't allow many prescriptions to be processed by the liver. And then what happens is those drugs, those narcotics, those prescriptions that the doctors have put you on, they build up in your blood system. And then what happens is you get toxic, you could get sick, and possibly even die. So make sure you talk to your doctor first about doing anything with CBD if you are on prescription medications. Okay, so who am I? Let me give you the camera back. Let's see here. Show webcam. There we go. I'm David Anthony Schrader. I've suffered from chronic pain for most of my life. My first injury, I was 7 years old, riding my banana bike down a slight hill. I hit a rock, I took a spill, and I injured my left shoulder. The doctor put some kind of not a cast, but some kind of straps that were supposed to keep my shoulder down. And I wasn't too good at keeping it on. And it wasn't until probably a year ago that I realized that that injury was still affecting me. When I lift up my arms, my shoulder clicks. It aches a lot of times. And I often wonder, what is wrong with my shoulder? And then it dawned on me that I had an accident when I was a child and injured it, and it still bothers me to this day. And when it's cold outside, oh, that's it. But I've suffered a lot of other injuries. I was diagnosed as being hyperactive in, I don't know, like early 1970, 1969, somewhere in there. And the doctor, or maybe it was a little earlier than that, and they didn't have the ADHD specification back then. It was just you are hyperactive. Well, I was very hyperactive. I would bounce off the walls like crazy. I just had so much energy, I couldn't sit still. So they put me on Ritalin. It did a so-so job, but I hated it because it made me feel yucky. I did not like CBD at all. I mean, not CBD. I did not like Ritalin at all. So as I got older, I needed high impact activities like BMXing, skateboarding, surfing, hiking. I needed activities that caused me to release energy so that I could calm down and relax. Well, in all of those activities, I had a lot of accidents. I remember one accident riding my BMX bike, and I went off a jump and my front wheel came off. Every weekend we would tear our bikes apart and put them back together. I forgot to tighten the front wheel. Excuse me. And when I went off that jump, that wheel flopped off and I took a crash dive head first. And, you know, sometimes when you have an accident, you see stars in your eyes. Well, not only did I see the stars, I felt the in the back of my neck because I did a face plant and it hurt. And so I've had all kinds of accidents throughout the years, plus a few car accidents. I used to drive a bus on a professional level. I had several accidents from people running into me, and I've had a few injuries. Well, those injuries, though they may heal, the bone and tissue and the underlying condition sometimes doesn't go away, and it aches all the time and it hurts. And the only thing that I could do, because I did not want to take other drugs, Ritalin was a turnoff to taking other drugs or other narcotics. I was introduced to cannabis when I was 11. That was a life changer. That actually brought me down to a level where I could sit still, I could do my schoolwork, I could focus because I was on cannabis. We didn't have CBD back in the day, but that was my new Ritalin. And I've used it off and on throughout my life. So I've had to find ways to deal with pain besides taking Valium and all the other narcotics that they prescribe because I just didn't like taking them. I didn't like how they made me feel. So most of my life, I've had pain throughout my body, in my knees, my elbows, my wrists, my shoulders, all over my body. When I got married and I had children, I had one night my two youngest daughters. My youngest was probably like 5, and the next one was probably like 7, 6 or 7, somewhere in there. And while putting them to bed, I was playing with them, tickling them, and children, they're kicking and playing, and no, daddy, don't do that. No, that tickles. And one day during that time, as my hand was coming down to tickle, my older daughter's foot came up and they collided at the same time, my right thumb. That injury lasted for 10 years. I was a big mountain biker. I played a little guitar. I couldn't play. It hurt. It really impacted how I could ride my bike. I couldn't change the gears. And for 10 years, that thing hurt. It ached. And I didn't have CBD back then, but all I could do was ice it, occasionally take Tylenol or something. But I didn't want to take drugs. I don't like taking man-made drugs. So I had to find a way to live with pain, and basically it was ice or heat, depending on the injury. And so now I have what I call pain events. And a pain event is like, the world calls, and we have economic events where the stock market's crashing, the economy's crashing. Those are economic events. We have disastrous events like Katrina and earthquakes and tornadoes. Those are disastrous events. I have what I call pain events. And so an event will last for a couple of weeks to a couple of months. And as I told you, my thumb and my hand for 10 years. And when a pain event hits, sometimes I could be laid out for 2 or 3 weeks. And when I'm laid out, I'm literally, if my neck and my back are messed up, I'm like this. I can't, I'm almost immobile. Last August 2019, I moved from Los Angeles to Dallas, Texas. I was in such a rush for the several weeks working up to leaving that I dropped all my exercise. I wasn't stretching. I wasn't doing things. And then I did a 2-day drive from Los Angeles to Dallas. I did a 10-hour drive, and then thinking it would be maybe another 10 hours to drive from wherever I stopped the night before to Dallas. Well, that was a 17-hour drive. And so when I arrived around midnight in Dallas, I was fine. I was tight. I was fine. But then the very next day, I could feel the pain. And then it probably wasn't half the day where my whole body just locked up. My neck, my shoulders, my back. I couldn't bend over. I couldn't touch my toes. I couldn't do anything. I was in mega pain for about 3 weeks. And unfortunately for me, I'm not wealthy. I'm not rich. I don't have a lot of money. And life does not give vacations. It doesn't give you a vacation for pain, doesn't give you a vacation from work. Your job might give you a vacation, but life doesn't give vacations. We all have the same 24-hour period. We all have to go through the same things. And so that pain event lasted 3 or 4 weeks. And luckily, I had CBD then. I was using CBD. And I think taking the CBD probably cut my healing time in half because it really impacted me. And the first week, I was stiff. I couldn't, and I use CBD in multiple ways to attack it on multiple fronts, whatever my issue is. So those are what I call pain events. And so when I have a pain event, I've got to do whatever I can to find healing so that I can at least operate and function in life. And it's not always easy when you live with chronic pain. So let's move on to the next slide. So I've kind of boiled down pain into 4 types. Right now, the CDC and WebMD, they all have their various types of pain. I've kind of boiled them all down together into 4 types, and these are what I've got. So acute pain. WebMD defines acute pain as follows. Acute pain typically comes on suddenly and has a limited duration. It's frequently caused by damage to tissue such as bone, muscle, or organs, and the onset is often accompanied by anxiety or emotional distress. So how does acute pain happen? Car accidents, crashing on your bicycle or motorcycle, a surfing accident, getting hit by a car, something that brings on the pain almost immediately. Accidents generally, that's where acute pain comes from. Then we have what we call chronic pain. And I'll use WebMD again. It defines pain as chronic pain lasts longer than acute pain and is generally somewhat resistant to medical treatment. It's usually associated with a long-term illness such as osteoarthritis. In some cases, such as with fibromyalgia, it's one of the defining characteristics of the disease. Chronic pain can be the result of damaged tissue, but very often it's attributable to nerve damage. Both acute and chronic pain can be debilitating, and both can affect and be affected by a person's state of mind. Now, I have found that to be true. If I'm in a good state of mind and I'm struggling with pain, it's easier for me to still be functional. I'm still able to get up and do things. When I drove from Los Angeles to Texas, I still had to figure out a way to get out of bed, to get in my chair, get in front of my computer, and work. It's not easy. If I'm in a bad mood, or if I have in a bad state of mind, or if I'm suffering from depression, or if I'm just struggling with something, man, those pain flares, it just almost feels like it's non-ending. It really slams you hard. So your state of mind can really impact your pain. If you're generally the glass is half full person, meaning you're a positive person, generally you're going to struggle with your pain, but your mindset will still allow you to move forward and be functional. If you are a person who is the glass is half empty, then generally you're a negative person. You're not a positive person. The glass is half empty, and those people really struggle with pain because their mindset is, oh man, when am I going to get over this? Pain is not fun. It hurts, and I hate being in pain. I'm struggling with pain right now, and I've dosed up on some CBD for my thumb because it still bothers me sometimes, and my neck and other issues. Okay, let's move on. The third type of chronic pain is called high-impact chronic pain. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention defines high-impact chronic pain as pain that impacts one life in such a way that it limits their life and work activities. That's kind of what I defined some of my pain. So I do have high-impact chronic pain sometimes. If you are stuck in a place where there's just your daily life is not being able to move, not being able to get out of bed, not being able to walk from the bedroom to the bathroom, or from the bedroom to the kitchen, or from the kitchen to the refrigerator. That's high impact. It impacts everything you do. And then we have the fourth type of pain. And this is the pain that is just beyond excruciating. So let me read this to you. The Mayo Clinic defines CRPS as complex regional pain syndrome. It is a form of chronic pain that usually affects an arm or a leg. CRPS typically develops after an injury, a surgery, a stroke, or a heart attack. The pain is out of proportion to the severity of the initial injury. Pain, swelling, redness, noticeably changes in temperature, and hypersensitivity, particularly to cold and touch, usually occur first. Over time, the affected limb can become cold and pale. It may undergo skin and nail changes, as well as muscle spasms and tightening. Once these changes occur, the condition is often irreversible. CRPS occasionally may spread from its source to elsewhere in your body, such as the opposite limb. Okay, so that's the medical definition that the Mayo Clinic defines CRPS. This is what the people that I know who struggle with CRPS, or chronic regional pain syndrome, they tell me it's like having an entire limb submerged into a great big vat of gasoline, and then they set it on fire. And that's their life. There is nothing they can do about it. Another good friend of mine says it's like taking a frying pan that's been sitting on the highest setting on the stove, frying your chicken, and then someone comes and picks up that pan and just takes it and just puts it on you. Ain't nothing you can do about it. And it just sits there and burns and burns. So some people call it the burning limb syndrome, where they literally feel like they are on fire. I have not had that kind of excruciating pain. Excuse me, but I know several people, and I'm connected with a lot more through Instagram, who struggle with CRPS. It's the worst of pain when it comes to life and being functional, being able to pursue life, pursue activities, pursue work, pursue love, to be able to get up and do anything without pain. That's just not something that CRPS people can live with. Not only that, I have one friend who has CRPS and has had it almost all of her life. And she has shared with me that on multiple occasions, she has fathomed taking her life. She has also fathomed taking off her right leg, the entire leg, because it's got so much pain. In the beginning, when she was a child, she said at the age of 5, she would go to the doctors, and the doctors thought she was kidding. She couldn't walk. She was in so much pain. She would cry. And everybody poo-pooed her and thought that she was making it a joke and that she wasn't in pain, because you couldn't see anything. The doctors couldn't see or tell what or where the pain was coming from. So people who struggle with CRPS, some have given up their lives. Many have amputated a limb or a digit to get rid of the pain. So if you struggle with CRPS or any of these types of pain, I'm sorry that you go through that. It is not fun. I know on the McGill pain scale, which was developed in the early 70s, it's a scale that goes from 0 to 50. Now, my chronic pain has been up to about a 30 over the years. And just a little bit higher than that is giving birth. But then higher than that, up around the 45 mark of that 50 scale, is where CRPS is. It's the most excruciating pain that you will ever feel. So anyway, those are the 4 pain types that I've identified, which I think covers all of the types of pain that are out there. All right, so why is CBD important? Well, it's important because, one, it's anti-inflammatory. CBD takes the swelling in the muscle and it reduces the swelling. So that's a big deal. If you can take your like a swollen arm that's just big and red and puffy and you can't move it, and internally and externally you apply CBD, you're impacting it in multiple ways, and it helps reduce the inflammation. Well, what happens when you reduce the inflammation? It allows blood to flow through the veins into the muscle tissue, and it also brings oxygen. When the muscles are inflamed, you cannot get as much blood flow and oxygen into the affected area. So if you're taking CBD, it will literally take and help you reduce the inflammation in your body. Another great thing, and one of the reasons why I like CBD, is it comes from a plant. It's not a narcotic. It's not something that man took and created and manufactured in his laboratory, spit it out, and then gives you 25 pages of side effects. That's a narcotic. That's a drug. CBD is not a drug. It comes from a plant. And let me just say something as a side note. A plant is not a drug. I'm going to tell you right now, a drug is a narcotic. A plant is not a narcotic. It's natural, and it's been here since the beginning of time. There's 6,000 years of recorded human history. And in those 6,000 years, there's ample evidence showing how people have used cannabis and hemp as a medicinal, potent medication to heal their bodies, to find relief from pain, from anxiety, and a variety of other ailments. So a plant that produces those kind of effects on the body is much better for you than Tylenol and codeine and Valium and all of these other man-made narcotics. That's just my opinion. Okay. So the beautiful thing about CBD is it can reduce pain. And that's my issue. I don't struggle with anxiety. I don't struggle with Parkinson's or other illnesses or diseases, but I do struggle with chronic pain. And for me, the first time I was turned on to CBD, a friend of mine in the cannabis industry turned me on to a CBD pain stick. I looked at him and said, okay, I'll try it. I was being courteous. I said, okay, I'll try it. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. In my mind, I'm thinking, it's just another Bengay or a hot lotion that you put on to help reduce pain. Boy, was I wrong. And gladly was I wrong. Because as soon as I used that pain stick on my neck and my shoulder, I think probably within 15 minutes, it took me a minute to recognize that all of a sudden this sharp jabbing pain in my neck and my shoulder was now a dull pain. And instead of being like this, I was actually able to be like that. Now, I still had pain, I still had swelling, and it was just my first introduction to CBD. But man, the impact was almost immediately. I couldn't believe it. I was blown away. So I was glad to be wrong. And I'm glad that he turned me onto that stick, because when he turned me onto that, it changed my life forever. It changed my direction from going this way to that way. And now I tell everybody about CBD. My mission is always to help and educate the next person. And that's why I do the webinars, to teach people how to use CBD to find relief from pain. Okay. All right. So here's the good stuff. How much should I use? How much CBD should I use? All right. So Michael Chapman, a doctor, this is what he says about CBD. Cannabinoid medicine is still in its infancy. Thus, dosing is not necessarily scientifically based, and confusion is common among healthcare providers. I know probably half a dozen doctors who are in the cannabis space, and they all agree. And each one of them will tell you that they will each give a different, um, what's the word I'm looking for? They'll give you a different way or a different diagnosis for using the CBD. They're all on different, one will say 5 milligrams, one will say 10, one will say 25. Nobody is on the same page. So continuing, however, unlike marijuana and THC, the risks associated with CBD are extremely low, with not a single case reported of CBD overdose in the literature. Excuse me. Regardless, the dose of CBD should be titrated or standardized to affect emphasizing the adage, start low, go slow. So what does that mean? What he's saying is when you're first being introduced to CBD, start off small, start off slow. Don't just jump in and try to make a big splash. Here's why. If you don't know how CBD is going to impact you, you could end up hurting yourself. So you always want to start off slowly on a small scale. First, to make sure you don't have any adverse side effects, because there are some side effects. You know, if you take too much, especially starting out, occasionally, if you take too much, you might have diarrhea. It doesn't happen all the time, but it can happen, especially with oil. You take too much oil, drink some olive oil, you're going to have diarrhea. If you take too much CBD, it could also make you drowsy. So you've got some manufacturers out there who have put together sleeping agents using CBD to not necessarily give you an overdose, but to give you a good shot of CBD to kind of make you relax and chill, and it helps you fall asleep. That's a good thing. So when you're getting into CBD, if you haven't tried it yet, start small, start slow, and then work your way up. The most important thing is to make sure that you don't have any side effects or adverse reactions to it as you would with a man-made drug. Okay. All right. So choosing your CBD dosage. This is where it gets tricky. You see, CBD is not a one size fits all. If I take 25 milligrams, that doesn't mean you're going to take 25 milligrams. And because it may be too much for you, or it might not be enough for you. And here's why. There are several factors that will impact how CBD impacts your body for pain. So the first two are the quality, and I didn't put this on my screen, and I'm sorry that I didn't do that, but I wish I had remembered to add this. So you can't see it, but I will explain it to you anyway. So there are two important things that you need to remember. One, the quality of what you purchase to take, and secondly, the potency. Those two can be the difference between night and day. If you buy a really cheap CBD, like I have one here, it's 150 milligrams. It's not necessarily a bad product, but it's a low potency. I've got another one here that's 1,000 milligrams. And so as you can see, there's a difference between potencies between a manufacturer's product and then other manufacturers. So the potency is an important factor to take into, where'd my brain go? Into consideration. The other thing is the quality. There are a lot of snake oil salesmen out there. And as of right now, about 2/3 of the products that are being sold over the internet in the gas stations and other stores have been tested to be low quality, some being as low as only having 2 milligrams of CBD in the entire bottle. That's not good. So the potency and the quality have big impact on you and for finding pain. But then there are other things that you need to take in consideration. These factors are your weight, your metabolism, your diet, the condition that's being treated, the severity of your illness, and then your tolerance to CBD. Now that last one, if you've used a lot of cannabis over your life, or you've taken a lot of other drugs and narcotics for pain and other things, chances are good that you're going to have a higher tolerance to CBD. So in which case then you're going to need to use more. So those factors, all of those factors will impact how CBD works in you and gives you the relief from pain that you need. So I've got two methods for picking how to take CBD for yourself. So method one is you can estimate your dosage based on your body weight. As with all prescribed medications, a person with more body weight will need to have more milligrams of CBD to experience its effects. A general rule of thumb for determining your personal CBD serving size is to start by taking 1 to 6 milligrams of CBD for every 10 pounds of body weight that you have based on your level of pain. If you're determining your initial dosage based on your weight, gauge how your body reacts to the amount of milligrams taken. If your pain decreases, let's say, by 50%, then increase the next dosage by another 2 to 5 milligrams and monitor your body's reactions. And that's the key. Once you consume some CBD, whether it's a topical, a suppository, a vape, or an oil, monitor what happens in your body. So in other words, if you take it right now and your pain is on a scale of 1 to 10, let's say it's at an 8 right now. And let's say in an hour from now, it's come down to maybe a 6. Okay, you've had an impact. So on your next dose, if you took 10 milligrams, bump it up to maybe 12.5 or 15 milligrams. Each time you take it, you're going to monitor and see how it impacts your body. Okay, so let me give you an example. A 200-pound person might have a good starting dose of 20 to 33 milligrams of CBD based on his weight. And if you look at my body weight calendar here, not my calendar, calculator, sorry, you can see I've broken it down into weight, and then I put moderate, severe, and chronic. So depending on where you are on here, that might be the place to start, okay? So now 20 to 33 milligrams might be perfect for a 200-pound person. That might be too much for a 150-pound person. But 15 to 25 milligrams might be perfect for a 150-pound person, okay? So the first way that you can look at figuring out how much CBD to take would be to use this weight calendar. Why do I keep calling it a calendar? Calculator. Sorry about that. All right. Now the second method would be closer to what Dr. Shatman said about start low, start slow. So you can estimate your dosage based on milligrams. A second method would be to start out with a 5 to 10 milligrams, gauge your body's reaction, stay at that level for at least a week for your body to get used to ingesting a new supplement, and then increase from there. Once you find your personal serving size, you can adjust the dosage on days where pain gets out of control. Remember, there is no one ideal CBD serving, and with time, you'll learn how your body reacts to a CBD supplement. So if you're worried about taking too much, or you really just want to make sure that CBD won't affect you in a negative way, you might start with method number 2, and then after a week or two, bump up to method 1. Find where you are on that calculator, find your weight. If you're at a medium pain, pick that number, and then start consuming that amount of CBD on a regular basis. Now, you're going to have days like I do where sometimes the pain rages out of control. And if I'm taking 25 milligrams and it doesn't work, I will come back in 3 or 4 or 5 hours because I haven't had much of an impact, and I'll take another 10 or 15, right? And it'll only be on that particular day, or maybe 2 days, depending on what's going on in my body. But generally, because I fight the war on multiple fronts, I do a little better because, like, if I'm having shoulder pain, I'll take oil and I'll use a topical. And then I might even eat edibles to throughout the day to keep um, that CBD flowing in, to keep reducing the inflammation so that it can reduce the pain, so that blood and oxygen can get to the area that it needs to be. So that's important. Okay. Okay, let's move on. Okay, something that people ask me about all the time, and so I thought I needed to include it here, is about microdosing. So what is microdosing? Well, if you're taking 25 milligrams of CBD each day for pain, and let's say you take it once a day, chances are good that probably towards the end of the day, what you've taken is going to wear off or has worn off. If you're microdosing, what you do is you take that same 25 milligrams, and let's say we take 5 in the morning, 5 several hours from now, another 5 several hours from then, and then another 5 from then. So you still consume the 25, but you do it throughout the whole day. Basically, what that's doing is, instead of getting this rush up and getting the CBD and then having it here and then gradually coming down, what you're doing is you kind of come up here and then you just kind of stay there. And if you do that regularly on a daily basis, the microdosing keeps you more even and keeps the buildup in your body at a different level. So microdosing is good. Basically, it's a consumption technique that involves taking low doses of CBD throughout the day. This allows your body to maintain steady levels of CBD throughout the day, which some research is showing to be of a greater health benefit. Although microdosing CBD oil takes more effort with the frequent doses, the benefits far outweigh this inconvenience. With taking a full day serving in a single dose CBD dosage, the effects may wear off at the end of the day, whereas the CBD levels are stabilized throughout the day with microdosing. So how can you microdose? There's a picture of a vape right there. Now, if you've got a good quality vape from a good manufacturer, not purchased off the street, not purchased on the black market, you've found a good quality vape, you can use that throughout the day, and I highly recommend it. You can take your oil several times throughout the day. You can take your edibles throughout the day. Now, I know that in California, you used to be able to buy edibles with a much higher milligram in that edible. Well, I think the law is now they won't allow you to sell anything over 100 milligrams. Or maybe that might be THC, or that might be THC and CBD. But if you take some edibles, gummies, if you take them several times a day, it's a great way to get some CBD in you, and it'll kind of keep you even. So there are multiple ways that you can take and microdose your CBD. Okay. Okay. Now, here is the big rub, and this is the problem that almost everybody has with CBD. How long should I take it for? Every time I speak to somebody, not every time, but probably 95% of the time when I speak with somebody about CBD, I ask them, how long have you been taking it? You said you took it, you didn't get relief from pain. Why? How long did you use it for? Oh, I tried it for a day, I tried it for 2 days, I didn't feel anything, so I stopped. Duh, come on, that's not wisdom. So here's the thing. Most people try CBD for 1 or 2 days and then they give up. This is what the doctors are now starting to tell us in some of the studies that have come out and some of the research that is showing up. is that the most effective neuropathic pain relief occurs after 1 week of daily CBD treatments. So what does that mean? That means taking CBD regularly every day, because what happens is it builds up in your body. So the more it builds up, the greater the impact. So why do I have a general sitting on his horse here? Let me give you this story, this illustration. I want you to see a general. He's looking over his battlefield, and he sees that on the left flank, the enemy has broken through and is going into his territory and pillaging and destroying and blowing up his homes and territories and the people, right? So what does he do? He sends a regiment of troops over to the left flank. Now, during the battle, some are killed, some are wounded, some run out of ammunition, and some run away or defect. Now, the next day, the general, he's looking over the battlefield again, and he looks at his left flank and he sees, okay, I've got more troops there today than I did yesterday. So he sends another regiment. During the battle, some are killed, some are wounded, some run out of ammunition, and some defect or run away. Each day, the general keeps looking over and sending fresh troops over to the left flank. Pretty soon, he has cut off the enemy, and now the enemy is on the run. He's chasing the enemy. The enemy can't get through anymore. Each day that you take CBD, you are sending fresh troops onto your pain battlefield. You're that general. Your job is to send fresh troops onto the battlefield so they can do their job. Now, CBD doesn't last. It does wear off. During the battle, some are killed, some are wounded, some run out of ammunition, some defect. So how long should you be taking CBD for? That's a question you ultimately have to answer for yourself, and it depends on your condition. If you are struggling with acute pain, let's say you just had an accident, generally an injury from an accident lasts about 6 to 12 weeks, 6 to 8 to 12 weeks. Okay, you might take CBD in an oil or in an edible or in a vape or in a variety of methods together to get additional CBD into you, to get additional troops onto your battlefield. When it's acute, it generally will go away fairly quickly within 6 to 12 weeks. Once that's done, you don't need to keep taking it anymore unless you're struggling with pain. If you're dealing with chronic, high impact, or CRPS, then it's probably something that you will probably make as a part of your lifestyle. And the doctors that got the one drug approved by the FDA, the dosage amount for that CBD product is 1,500 milligrams. That's a lot of CBD. You and I will probably never need to take that much, but if you do, yikes, I'm sorry that you have to deal with that. But generally, for most consumption, I have found with people that I talk to, anywhere from 10 to 50 milligrams on a daily basis is good for them to deal with their pain. And if you're struggling with long-term pain, you may find some healing by taking the CBD. It will probably help reduce the pain, help reduce the swelling and the inflammation, allowing blood flow and oxygen to come in to bring health and healing to those areas. So how long you take CBD is going to be different for each person depending on what they're struggling and dealing with. So keep that in mind. You are the general. You have a battlefield. Your enemy has penetrated, and you need to send in fresh troops to block that enemy so that you send him on the run. So that's why I have the general there. Okay. Let's move on. Okay, so questions. Who's got some questions? Let me see here. Let me open up my my chat here. Who's chatting? Oh, okay. Let me chat here. All right. Let me scroll through here. What if I take too much CBD? Okay, if you take too much CBD, as I mentioned earlier, the worst case scenario, oh, and now I shouldn't say that. If you've already been using it for a little while, you really shouldn't have to worry too much. If you do take too much, the worst case scenario is you might have diarrhea or you might feel drowsy, maybe even some slight cotton mouth. Those are really the bad things, the worst things that happen. There may be some conditions occasionally where it might be worse than that, but those are the general effects of having too much CBD. And for those that are struggling with um, sleep issues, too much CBD might be a good thing, right? So let me scroll through here. Uh, and okay, she wants to know, can I use CBD in multiple forms? Absolutely. So I'm a big proponent on using CBD in multiple different ways. So back to my general. So when the general is on the battlefield and he's got the enemy surrounded, what is he doing? He's using artillery here. He's using air warfare here. He's got troops coming in here. He's fighting the battle on all these different fronts. So for me, I'm not a big suppository user, but you can take CBD via suppositories. You can use your vape. You can use edibles. You can use tinctures. You can use it as a sublingual, or you can swallow. Um, you can smoke it. You can, like here, I have from Empire Wellness. They sent me a CBD pre-roll. If you can see that inside, it's in the package there. If you can see that, so that's a pre-roll. Okay, so that is a full spectrum industrial hemp that you can smoke. It's not going to get you high. You're not going to feel that, whoa, man, this is good stuff. No, what you're going to feel is like, oh, my pain, where did it go? So you can use CBD in multiple ways, even topicals. I'm a big believer in topicals. If you are on prescribed medications, then really the best thing you can do are use topicals, like for joint pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, muscular pain, because that's the slowest method for any of it to get into your bloodstream and then into your liver, right? So you're not going to have to worry that much about it impacting the liver and taking control of your body if you're just putting a topical on, right? And then again, it depends on how much CBD is inside that topical, right? So I'm a big proponent for taking on the battle multiple fronts. So absolutely, and you definitely want to do use it in multiple ways for sure. Let's see. Do you have a company that you trust? All right. So yes, the question is, are there any CBD companies out there that I trust? There are, but I'm not going to share them because each person has to do their own research. Now, the FDA still has not taken control of the CBD issue. So it's really the wild, wild west. And your job is to unfortunately wade through all of the BS and the false information that's out there about CBD and to do your own research. Because if you can do your own research, then that means you're fairly educated on the topic and you have a good understanding. So when you signed up for this webinar, you should have gotten an email with the 6 reasons why CBD does not work, and it should have had the CBD buyer's checklist. On that checklist, it's pretty comprehensive. It also has the instructions, and basically what it does is it will help you identify and weed out the bad guys. So it's broken up into 3 portions. One, I think, is reading the label. It's then reading, going on the website, and then there's a third portion. Reading the COA, the certificate of analysis, okay, or the test results. So it breaks down everything that you need to understand so that you can weed out the bad guys. And it's got a checklist. So it tells you what's required and what's acceptable to not be required. So if you've got that checklist, excuse me, you can sit down there and you can go to any product, go through that checklist and say, nope, not good. And yes, it might take you a little while to find something good. It took me several years. Once I started using that pain stick, that thing was awesome. But then when I started trying to find other products and oils, a lot of them didn't work. I was disappointed. And the thing is, I knew so many people in the cannabis industry that were CBD manufacturers of products, and I tried a lot of them. There were so many that were not good. And of course, this was before the licensing in California came about. So the CBD checklist, if you can take that, print it out, use that, that will be your guide. And once you identify a good company, you don't need to look any further. They will have it in various amounts of milligrams. And unfortunately, the higher the quality or the higher the potency of the CBD product you're buying, the more expensive it's going to be. I know that's kind of a drag, but that's just one of the things that we have to deal with. Now, at some point, there's going to be enough CBD and enough manufacturers out there that the competition will bring prices down. Competition is always a good thing. So I'm definitely for that. So I hope that answers your question. Yes, okay. So let me scroll through here. Let's see what do we got here. How do I choose a good CBD product? Okay, the same thing. You want to do use the CBD buyers checklist. Okay, what is better, isolate or oil? Okay, that's a great question. Okay, there are basically three things in the CBD field that you can look at. You've got isolate, broad spectrum, and full spectrum. Okay, so what does that mean? CBD isolate basically is the plant has been processed. It's gone through various cycles of processing. And okay, let me know it's ending. Okay, I got 5 minutes. So what happens is isolate is boiled down into a white powder. And then that white powder, the crystals, can be used on your food. It can be used on a variety of things. The oils, full spectrum and broad spectrum, have a variety. The full spectrum has everything, including the possibility of having a tiny bit of THC. Broad spectrum is when everybody takes what they're trying to attack, and they'll add different cannabinoids to make their product. Okay. All right. So let me see. What other questions do I have? How do you feel about mixing THC with CBD? You know what? Studies are already showing that CBD and THC together create a greater synergistic effect and have a bigger impact on the body, especially for pain. So I'm 100% for it. I have nothing bad that I can say against CBD and THC. So if you want to use THC, it just makes the THC that much stronger. I mean, the CBD that much stronger, and it has a greater impact on your body. So let me scroll through here really quick. I should have made this a longer webinar. Will I fail a drug test? The possibility is there, yes. That possibility of failing a drug test is there. If you take a full spectrum and use it regularly every day, the possibility of THC building up in your bloodstream is a real possibility. So be careful, caveat emptor. Be careful about what you're taking. So let me scroll through here. Let me see anything else. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. I hope this was good. Awesome. Okay. All right, you guys. I hope you found this to be beneficial. I hope that you learned a lot. I will email you guys as soon as this thing is done processing to let you know that you can watch the replay, and I'll post it up on our website for under webinars. Until next time, keep pushing on, keep trying to fight that pain with your CBD. If you want to mix THC with it, do what you got to do. Until next time, everybody, you guys have a great night. Take care.